So yeah, Jagdish, I just thought we'd do a quick check, a mic check, and a video check. Uh,
Hey, Ajay, am I audible?
yes, yeah, very audible. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think even the
Yeah,
video
I think,
is working.
thanks to Lenovo, for this very beautiful angle of camera.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was telling the previous speaker as well. Like if we were in the office, my question to you would be, can I get you some water, or can we go grab a coffee before the? But these are strange times, so.
Totally. Just,
Yeah, we've had a pretty active audience as well. They've been very excited, and they know what we're going to talk about. You know, so I think it'll be very
right.
insightful. We'll see how it goes.
Sure.
We have around 2 more minutes, and then we can start at 7:30 sharp. Right.
Yep, I'm done. It's just you and me right now?
No, actually, there are about 114 people on the call.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's about 114. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you've been traveling.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to, put that as a caveat. I'm in a village right now. So again, thanks to Geo,
Right,
it's really, helping a lot in these days. So in
right.
case of any call incoming, there's a chance that my,
Sure,
internet
sure.
might be spotty.
Yeah, like we discussed, I mean, if you have to turn off the video to get better, bandwidth or anything, totally free to do that. And let's see. I
Yeah,
think it,
sure.
it, it looks great so far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Geo is awesome. Okay, just another minute, and then we can begin.
Sure.
Okay, Jagdish. So I think it's 7:30, so we can get started, right?
Sure.
Well, formally, Jagdish, welcome to Cryo and welcome to our Big Variable series. We're excited to have you here. Through Big Variable series, we're trying to get some of the top tech, people from within India to come and share your thoughts, talk about building products, talk about opportunities within companies, as well as interview preparation and many other softer skills that are very software developers today, right? So, warm welcome to you. Today, we're going to
Thank
talk
you.
about a hiring manager's perspective and how you can spot great talent, right? And I think you've had an opportunity to do this a lot in your career. So I think everybody can benefit a lot from the insights that you have to share.
Sure, Ajay. Thanks. Equally, I'm also, excited for this
Right.
opportunity,
Mhm.
and it's a great platform, to really talk about, what we are kind of, doing and the need of the hour.
Sure.
There easily, like, last year we did a hiring of about, like, 100, 200. This year again, we are looking around the same, and it's a good platform to discuss so that, we also get, benefited out of this equally. So really, yeah, happy to be here and help in any fashion.
Great. So, Jagdish, we'll start with a quick introduction. Like you're associate director at RCCM. Do you want to talk about your journey in the software industry and what you've done so far before coming into RCCM?
Sure. Before that, I think I want to start with a caveat, as with any of these talks, that all these information that I'm sharing here is purely from a personal basis.
Sure.
There is strictly nothing associated with the company kind of a stuff, and it's also equally from not just my own experience. I'm just trying to share based on my experience, my friends and colleagues, and different people you get to interact with. For being old, that's the advantage that you have. So yeah, so my career kind of started from my alma mater, PSG Tech, about 15 years ago. So 2005, passed out, and I did some internship for about like few months, as a summer internship story, and from there on, it's been with DE Shaw. And the funny thing, me being a hiring manager, is DE Shaw was my kind of first interview that I gave in college.
Right.
One that I waited, I just cracked, in the first one without having too much experience at that time. So post DE Shaw, it's been kind of 10 years with DE Shaw, and yeah, I know it's a pretty long journey compared to the folks these days.
Sure.
And post that, it's been kind of 5 years in with RCGM, which kind of again, interesting thing is it's a DE Shaw spun out entity, so it's still part of the larger DE Shaw group umbrella
Right.
kind of companies.
Right.
So yeah, again, it started. I was a CS grad from college, and post that, it's been like the various software development in typical life cycle, where being a developer, senior developer, kind of a team lead, project manager, and now an associate director. And
Right.
in my role, I'm kind of managing about 50 odd people, and it's primarily about like a couple of products that I have to manage and deliver, and kind of I put it in a simple terms of end-to-end ownership of the entire products.
Right.
Be it right from development, QA, or post-production support, or like product-related stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, that's a
short
that's a great that's a great journey, and we happen to have a person from DE Shaw in Cryo as well, Amit. So anyway,
Yeah.
so it's a great company, and you have a pretty inspiring career track so far. So anyway, let's get started. So Jagdish, we're going to focus on how teams are built, and how do you spot great talent. And while building these teams, obviously you're looking at hiring, and it's a very important part of I mean, the right hiring and getting the right people on board can make a huge difference to an organization, right? So from your perspective, what do you look for in the kind of candidates across different roles? We can talk about it, but broadly, we can start with the interview process and what you're looking for in candidates through the interview process. Right.
Sure. Like you rightly said, the biggest asset of any digital company is the people. Whatever happens is, because of the folks, who are there, and hiring is extremely crucial, to make or break company, right, in these ages. So when it comes to, like you said, the first thing is about, how do you build a right team in place? So, right from what you need, I mean, what you have as a product, when you start the ideation phase of, having a product vision and stuff, you then start to think about, okay, what are the kind of roles do you need? What are the kind of people do you need? And so, in a very established company, a lot of these things, become much more process oriented, because things have been sorted out and you already know upfront, and you have the luxury of pre-planning it at least for a year, if not more. And but however, when it comes to a startup, it's a completely different journey altogether, because things are being fluid. You're just trying to figure out yourself day in and day out. So that way things tend to vary depending on kind of which kind of companies we get into.
Right.
But however, a pretty brief, high-level overview, would be right from, folks, the expectations are about finding the right talent. And one of the biggest take-home message, I want to give in this talk is that hiring is not scientific. So it's not guaranteed that, however best you are, you're going to exactly be, just taken up and identified. So there are a lot of, variable, gets into place, right? So that's one of the fundamental message, that I wanted to give in this talk. So don't be disappointed if you don't make it in an interview, or you just get selected. Don't take it for granted that yes, this is the right thing and I'm on the right track. Stuff.
Right.
So in terms of basic skills that are needed, beyond the very role specific needs, it always comes to, I think communication skills is one of the critical element. Doesn't matter, in terms of a tech or a non-tech, wherever you go, as a general human being, communication is the most essential skills, and, the various soft skills. But yeah, we could discuss depending on, the role and the maturity and the kind of experience, a lot of these things play a role.
Right. So we can start. I mean, just to introduce the audience to you as well. Typically, a lot of students that are also working professionals earlier on in their career, 3 years or less, right? And primarily focused on engineering, sort of software development kind of roles. So the coding interview forms sort of a very big anchor around which you're trying to evaluate a candidate, right? So yeah, what are you looking for? It's a coding interview. How do you select your questions, and then how do you sort of analyze the performance of a candidate throughout the interview?
Sure. So trying to keep it, then, probably we could take it focus for this audience of assuming somewhere 0 to 3 years, kind of a focus, not like too experienced, right?
Sure.
So yeah, again, software development role, the first fundamental thing, people think it's all about coding, but, we know, coding is just, one part of the entire stuff, but it's again a crucial, journey, particularly in the formative years of career in software development. So when it comes to coding interview, one of the hard things, now from a hiring manager is to make sure that you really come up with a question which can evaluate how good the code that people can write, right from the structure that they provide, the thought process of, how to make a code, pretty maintainable, or at least it's, kind of readable and manageable by the folks, later on. Because in college, I think, that's a huge difference when we come from a college to, corporate sector. That in college, it's all about, how quickly can I get an output? And, I'm sure all of us in our college life should have done some printf statement somewhere just to showcase our, profs or whoever that, hey, yeah, my code is working, right? But it's majorly focused on just getting the right algo, the right thought process, converting your thought process into code, and, just giving it out. But when it comes to corporate, one of the big change is that these code are going to live in for, a lot of years, if not like, really for 10 years, it could be even from 2 to 5 years. But we know that, this code is going to be more read than the number of times you rewrite or edit the code. So one of the big things is about like, a clean code kind of a thing is crucial. The second thing is kind of, right kind of algorithm, right kind of thought process, and, of course, the right output that is expected from the code, all those forms, kind of, very crucial part of coding ground. And like I said, given the number of platforms that exist today, right, from Hacker Earth to InterviewBit to LeetCode to, a lot of other, very famous things out there. These days for hiring managers, one of the crucial things is to make sure that a code, we come up with a problem which is not really, already present out there for people to have just, try and, repeat what they've done, elsewhere.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we try to do as well is, we try to rewrite the problem statement so you can't Google it, and then you're forced to sort of think about it with fresh eyes. Even though you might have solved a similar problem before, it takes a lot of effort to actually map to something you have done before, and even that is usually a good test, So do you care about language? There are people who say Python is a bad choice for interview. It's always better if you use a strong type language like Java or C, C++, something like that. Any thoughts around that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's one kind of a slight common misconception that exists that, hey, today, let's say Go language is the latest, or Rust or any of that. Hey, I have to know that to crack an interview, be it with any of the top companies. So honestly, from that perspective, all as a hiring manager, we care is your ability to learn and adapt. And it's not about trying to, just memorize all the syntax of various languages. And hey, I know 10 languages, I know 20, doesn't matter. In one language, it could be, right from, C, C++, Java to JavaScript, it doesn't matter. It's all about, can, the person that whom I'm interviewing, can he instill confidence to us that, if we hire him, languages doesn't matter because things keep, updated and outdated. There are few languages which are, out there for really long, but it doesn't matter. It's about your depth of understanding and ability to demonstrate that learnability that matters a lot. So again,
Right.
we let people open out to any language that they write. And again, in terms of the coding round, it's not just about the correct output that matters, or even if you fail all the the test cases that we have kept for any of the coding, we
Right.
more try to judge by the code. Because it's very easy to go make that one silly mistake which takes out the entire the test cases to break.
Right.
But it's also about the thought process that goes in terms of how do you code, all those matters.
Right. So on that point, if I'm hearing you correctly, then well-structured code divided into some logical blocks that are that also demonstrate how you can how you're thinking about different chunks of code, and structure is probably a good thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. What about design skills? There's high-level design, low-level design, system design. There are different terms for it, and of course, there's a distinction between high-level and low-level design. How do you evaluate? I mean, first of all, do you evaluate people 3 years or less of work experience, right, on their design skills? And
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that last part. Because there are again, various elements at play here. See, one is about folks who are coming from a CS background, particularly from a fresher thing. The expectations are completely different because we understand that you haven't worked, so it's kind of unfair to ask all the industrial related stories where day in and day out you work on huge projects. And so the moment you cross 1 year, the expectations slightly change because we expect that you understand that flow where you should be able to at least demonstrate a reasonable high level, if not a completely accurate and well thought through around the whole stories. And again, as years experience, that expectation also keeps increases. And similarly for a non-CS kind of a background, the major expectation is to kind of reasonably establish that whatever ACADS you have done, or the things that you've done towards the kind of particular algorithms, and which forms like a basic foundation for any of the software development roles, you're able to more go by that rather than trying to go towards too much into the system design stuff. So that said, one of the basic criteria these days are around not just these days, it's been there for long, is around the OOPS concept, because like object-oriented programming, as it called. So they are like, some of, again, forms a pretty solid foundation in terms of evaluating understanding of folks. So, be it the famous terms of encapsulation, inheritance, those kind of things are necessarily expected. But few years down the line, like, design patterns and things like that, take a little more precedence than, these basics.
And do you evaluate these OOPS concepts, like maybe take a small example and see if the candidate, like maybe build a card game, for instance. It's a deck of cards, you're playing blackjack, and then later on in the interview, you say, okay, fine, you have the basic structure of cards and decks and hands, and then maybe instead of blackjack, if you have to change it to some other game like poker, what kind of changes? Are these sort of questions are par for, say, 1 year experience? Do you expect them to think through these things?
That's again a very beautiful question, because again, coming to the corporate sector, there's no meaning in talking about like a definition of anything. Those are for your exams. When it comes here, it's all about the real world, because like the problems, the challenges that you're going to expect are not the ones that you've solved around, one of my favorite one is around like very basic thing like a basic like a pen. You have different kind of pens in a pen store. How do you do? Or a lift system, which has this directionality and stuff, at play. How do you manage them? What kind of data structures do you internally then have it? A lot of those things, basically it's about taking a kind of a real world example, a very simple one, which is out there, and then try to, get into the details, as things progress. And as you said, cards are also one of the favorite ones, which are used across the industry.
Yeah, I think it gives a lot of flexibility to get into complexity depending on how the candidate performs. So at least it's my favorite. So things like projects, past projects that people have done, candidates might have done. Like how do you evaluate projects? It's very difficult to look at a resume description and see like what they might have done. So how do you evaluate projects that are on resumes?
Yeah. So when it comes to resume screening, I think it's a slightly difficult problem, as you said. Where just by a 3-liner or 4-liner, or there are some fancy stories where people have written like 2 pages as
Sure.
if that's a project summary out there in their resume. So it's a very difficult thing to definitely evaluate. So we kind of go by a lot of other criteria clubbed with the project. So project is alone not the one. But definitely, if there is something interesting project. So one of the key tips I would like to give here would be kind of the languages, the frameworks that stands out. It's not like a very usual thing or something kind of to crisply know, because it's very hard to understand even if you explain your entire project to know how you design, what are the most difficult problems has he really solved something much more challenging in those things. So projects, at the face value are slightly limited when it comes to the resume screening. However, where they get into, much more valued would be during the actual interview process. For kind of, either, like I said, like, hey, what are the big challenges that you've solved in the project? It's again to evaluate what kind of effort you have really put in, what are the learnings or takeaways from those projects. Those forms, very crucial elements during the hiring process.
Right. And for people with working experience, they talk about their work-related projects, and it's similar, I would assume, in the way you evaluate.
Yeah, probably I'll slightly extend this question to also talk about resume, because things start from the resume screening process, right? So there are a few also do's and don'ts that I wanted to discuss, because it will also honestly help me in my job to do it better, right? People, the first thing, as there's a famous saying that space in the resume is like your real estate investment. Please don't try to create like a 88 pages or 10 pages or 3 pages. Nobody is going to bother going through so much. People don't have time to get into that much to make a decision. Typically the first half page kind of makes or breaks a deal. Again, for folks who kind of ask that, hey, is it fair? I've really spent time trying to put all that investment to write through so much, and you guys are just simply neglecting it. Like I said, interview is not the entire hiring process is not a scientific process, right? Because of the number of resumes that we get, for the screening time that we would have, it's also important that you make the best use of the space that you have. So to that extent, right from, there are very basic things that people neglect and that matters a lot. Right from the fonts that are being used to build up a resume, they people put too much of fancy things these days, to try to do them. Infographics is still fine as long as you could make it. I see, infographics have started to play a nice role where people try to put it in their, side column to kind of, rate for each of the skill set that they have. It's a very quick few tip for us to know, okay, this is what kind of, the person has worked on, does it fit for the role, all that. But, trying to too much of graphify them, colorful, all like, 20 colors in a resume, it's very hard when it comes to, reading through the resume. Right. And you could also, make, again, people are not really interested, honestly, about like too much of personal details about my father, my father's occupation, my mother's name, all that. It's all about, how, Chris, can you describe what are the major takeaways? And from that, the ordering matters. In terms of experienced person, you should definitely put your recent experience first, and then, take it down, till your college. Again, college still, helps because, academics does play a major role, at least during the initial formative years, of a person. And the bigger institutes that you've cut definitely shows, that you've worked hard at some stage. Again, is, college the only criteria? Honestly, no. But, they at least give a clue in terms of, hey, this person has done some good work at some stage in his life, and hence he was, able to get into those, tough institutions.
Right.
And like I said, the top section, please folks remember, that's the kind of, extremely crucial one.
Right.
So try to put out your real strengths in terms of, and please do take some time to, slightly fine tune your resume to the needs of the role or the company that you're putting on. Uh, it's fair to have, one resume and, try to put out elsewhere, but the more fine tuning you're putting in for the specific role, or the specific company that they have worked on. For example, let's say, you're applying to a company which is predominantly a Java shop or predominantly a Go shop. Just having it there, it's a plus. Again, please don't think that's the only way to, break there. Again, just remember what you're going to put a resume, what the interview is going to cover on. If you put a COBOL, there is no point in talking about Go and Rust, with the person. So it's all about what's there out there in the resume.
Right.
So coming to the projects, sorry for the little.
No, it's very great advice. Great advice.
Yeah. So coming to the projects, again, they definitely play a huge role. Again, for a fresher, because we understand, within a 6 month, how much of typical, it takes time for folks to come, settle in, understand the project, start contributing it. So again, it plays, much more role the more higher experience you grow. Definitely for 1 year, 2 year experience, when we are hiring, any interesting projects that are there and more kind of suiting to the roles that we look for, definitely adds value to the things. And like I said, the tech stack, those things are a plus, not like the only criteria.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we tell, and you brought up an excellent point around customizing your resume for the job that you're applying for. And for folks who are listening, if you're wondering, how do I know? Then the job description actually has all the details. Sending a resume and saying, I'm interested in a role in your organization, and here is my resume, is a red flag, right? Because the job descriptions are very clearly laid out, and the different positions available also are very clearly laid out. You don't have to apply to everything. Pick one that really interests you, and then it's easy for you to customize and target that one role. And I think, and Jagdish, you can share your insights here as well. How much research do you expect a candidate has done about your company? Like, it should not be like a blank slate, but how much, do you expect the candidates to have done some reading or have some idea about the role that they're applying for, as well as the company and what the company is doing?
Yeah. So again, should a person know completely in depth of the company, what it's doing, how its growth trajectory? Definitely not into those, but at least basics of what is that company about. If a person just tells me that, hey, this is my company, what do you know? If he's like, no, I'm clueless, I was just curious, I just applied. It's not like straight away a reject story, but it's definitely a negative brownie point, to that.
Right.
At the same time, if a person tells that, hey, this is the basics that I know, that's good enough. It's
Sure.
just about, how much aware that person is. That's again, one of the criteria for, hiring when it comes to a behavioral story, that in
Right.
general, how much, a person is aware around his, surroundings. Is he just, fully knowledgeable about the things that are there? These are like minor things that definitely adds value. And
Right.
particularly a job description is a please help yourself spend that 5 minutes to learn it. because there are a lot of tips that you would get from what the firm is looking for, and you could very well tailor your messages more towards that.
Right.
Because a lot of people have that experience, but maybe they have missed to put in the resume, or at least during the talking, please do highlight those things.
Right.
Again, particularly for the 0 to 3 years, those are definitely added brownie points. I wouldn't say that's the kind of tip off that, hey, yeah, this person is definitely not there.
Right.
But yeah, the more experience you go, you definitely anticipate that they've done their groundwork really strong before
Right.
trying to come in. And
Right.
like, to add few red flags around the resume, I think it's funny, people, the email addresses that they use, sometimes they also tend to add certain thing. I think one of my friend was talking about there's something called, like, black sucks thing. Like, honestly, you don't want to get into some kind of a controversial stories when it comes to that. So that's definitely a
Yeah.
no-go zone when it comes to that. And adding things like your LinkedIn profile. Basically, social media is becoming much more predominant these days. So please do add any of your LinkedIn profiles or websites. A lot of people have done a lot of work as a side project or things like that. To demonstrate that, it would be unfair to explain too much in the resume. And if you could just add, hey, here's a website link, or here's my hacker rank or hacker that what are the competitive coding things or the coding scores, the coding ranks, they definitely add a booster to your resume.
Right. What about roles of internships, and also this changing practice in many companies where they prefer to hand out internships and then consider pre-placement offers, sometimes at the same time, or sometimes it's internship and then to a potential hiring, something like that.
Yeah. So I would first answer to the internship story. When it comes to your resume, I think it adds again a booster value, particularly for the 0 to 1 year, because it shows that let's say a 6 month out of college person I'm looking at, it shows that you're definitely not 6 monther, you're actually 6+ something, whatever that internship period is. Number one. Number two, if you have worked in again a corporate setup in that 6 month during your internship, it also shows that you would definitely be a little extra goer, because a lot of that college to corporate kind of a thing gets covered in those 6 months of there. So that's to the internship, but beyond a certain point, it starts to not add much value, because your actual real work experience talks about. And to some extent, if you've done a solid work in the internship, it kind of adds to your career track overall. But again, it's not like, definitely, again, like I said, it's not again, if this person has not done an internship, doesn't mean that no, he's not fit for the screening or stuff like that.
Right.
It's again just a brownie point into the story.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, I missed your second question.
I was talking about the rising trend in companies where they prefer to hand out internships and evaluate candidates, and then consider giving them a full-time offer, PPO kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about those things? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That's actually one of the recent huge change in industry when it comes to India. It's been there for a long time, abroad. So, like, it's always been so far that, you try to interview. And like I said, in the 3-4 rounds or whatever n number of rounds that a company does, it's very, a subjective call that you end up taking. It's not fully scientific, like I said, to judge a person, in that time. And,
right.
Very famous example that's out there, I would like to give, is a WhatsApp founder. I'm sure, all of you guys would have known that, he got rejected in the Facebook interview process. And in the end, he built a huge company and sold for a huge $1 billion deal to the same company that, rejected him in the first place, right? So interview process, it's like that, that's how it is. So in terms of the change, it's an extremely strategic one, because like I said, in the 3-4 hours trying to judge someone and trying to, hand over a job, and later you figure out that things are not, going, good for both of you guys. it's not a very, rosy story. And
Right.
that's where, for the industry and for the folks also, it kind of, helps from the both parties, right? Because, you'd have heard as a student or, fresher who's coming, you'd have heard so much up from outside, but let's say you try to land in, into the role, you see that, hey, somehow I thought, this is different to my stuff. I want to part ways. It's again a slightly, different or difficult story from there.
Right.
So the strategy has been, instead of going to the college towards the start of the fourth year, start hitting the colleges or, the ACAT places towards the end of, towards the start of the third year. The reason is that, there's so much competition right there, and definitely all the top companies want all the cream folks, from the colleges. And, you try to give that internship opportunity. And again, why start of the third year or whatever, start within the third year, I would say, because few colleges start from like, mid of the third year, they open their internship things. The idea being, we have a summer internship of, about 2 months at the end of the third year or start of the fourth year, the break between the third and fourth. You come in, you get to experience the culture, the role typically, how it is, how a corporate setup is, all of that. It serves as a good platform for us also to evaluate. Like, I think 2 months, again, we know that, first 1 week, last 1 week typically goes in terms of settling down the campus to corporate, kind of stories.
Right.
And the last 1 week in terms of trying to wrap up the project and stuff. We have a good 6 weeks to judge a person in terms of what his potentials are, beyond the interviewing skills, as I would like to call. Because there are a lot of smart folks out there who are, extremely great at interviewing skills. It's about, they could crack literally any interview, but then you bring in them in-house, you try to put on a job, you try to assign a project, then you get to know their real colors. And on the contrary, there are, fantastic folks out there. Just because of, certain elements that they miss in the interview skills, you tend to miss out on that, talents.
Right.
So this served as a, a great strategic shift for both parties to come and experience, and for us to evaluate in that 6 week period, which gives a good forum.
I think you touched upon something that's interesting, and I'd like to dig deeper. For people who kind of miss out on a few things in the interview process, but still somehow have these other things that make them compelling to say, okay, maybe we should try this person out, right? What are some examples of those things? Do you have any?
Sure.
Ideas?
So yeah, we actually recently hired a person with a civil engineering background. So the folks who are out there, I know there is definitely a lot of this kind of a thing about a little bit of a worry about, hey, I'm a non-CS person. How do I get in kind of stuff? We have hired, one of the folks in my journey, was around a civil engineering background, which has absolutely, nothing to do towards this. But, again, the reason why we hired him was that he has done so much of hard work, and he had tried to prove himself via, like I said, he's done a beautiful website. He has done a lot of freelancing stuff. Basically, those are kind of avenues for us to know that he really, knows stuff. He can come and he can build, something good. It's not like, he has huge acumen of a product or a product company or stuff like that. It's nothing to do. It's all about, hey, whatever person you are, doesn't matter from which background. How can you instill a confidence, to the hiring team that you're a good fit, for the roles that you're looking for. And, like the software development role that we're talking about, it's, all about how could you show some of those critical elements of it, right from problem solving, the challenges, the hurdles that you come across, the ways, there are different ways, people try to do that. And there've been a lot of interviews where, we have hired a person, not just, you've been like, flippy floppy in few of the areas. There's a person with a little bit of communication skills, hiccups that were there, but we still, went with that hiring because he came out extremely strong in, some of the other areas like a problem solving and things like that. So it's always a, slightly a subjective thing when it comes to an interview, that it's not like we look for a person who aces, kind of, put a tick mark on all the things. I would definitely go for my team with somebody who's really strong in one or, two of the things, and which gives the confidence that he can build upon or work upon the other areas than somebody who's moderate, all across.
Right.
So
Yeah, those are great stories actually. And one of the things that I personally like to tell everyone is, figure out your strengths and go deep on your strengths. Now, weaknesses, you have to learn how to manage them. But if you're very strong in what you are strong at, then, it's a very compelling case to make there as well, right? Yeah, just a few couple of other questions, and then we can go to user questions, right? And just a reminder to all the listeners here, if you haven't added your questions on Slido, please go ahead and add it right now. In a few minutes, we'll start taking your questions as well, right? The behavioral route tends to be largely ignored, at least from a preparation standpoint, for many students and even working professionals, right? So how do you assess, questions like what are their career goals? Many people, I mean, the common questions, what are you planning to do? Like, especially if they've done 1 year experience, 2 years of experience. At least some things that we like to ask them is, what are your goals? What do you want to do? How do you want your career to shape up? So what do you look for in answers to such questions?
yeah, again, extremely thanks for that question. It's a brilliant one. The reason is that we find that again, one of my favorite questions. Typically, I start most of my interviews with, "Hey, please share a quick brief about yourself, and then talk about your aspirations. What's a career goal you think that this company is going to help you solve?" It's to find that right fitment from both sides. It's not like we just hire the person who we think are the kind of properly fitting in, but it should kind of align with their career goals. Then that person can take the company really 2x or 5x or 10x, because it's really aligned to your intrinsic motivation.
Right.
And that's again a very general and a common topic. I don't want to go deep into that, but intrinsic motivation, it's always great to have folks in your team with intrinsic motivations aligned with your company objectives, than trying to motivate a person from exterior, be it money, be it other perks and stuff. It can take you only so far. Right. So again, we typically don't start that question from a college fresher, because we know I've also been from those things where I was absolutely clueless when I kind of finished my grad. I just wanted to go in somewhere, figure out what I want, and kind of move forward. But definitely the from a 1 year, 2 year basis, we try to have a check towards that. So the major story there would be to figure out the passion from the person, whether he's really passionate about the role, or he's just trying to, hey, time pass, I'm just trying to check. Those do kind of make or break a little bit, depending on kind of the roles you're being hired for. And the things like the learnability kind of stuff. So we try to assess few of the skills or behavioral stories, the cultural fit, which is again not so much talked about in the industry, also as a whole, because it's again come in, if it doesn't fit your culture. For example, some of them are like, hey, I want a fully planned thing. I can just work on a full place project, which is very much known for a year in advance. For example, in a startup world, a kind of that person will be a strictly no-go zone, where things are fluid, it's changing, day in and day out. So things like that is the most crucial ones, where we majorly try to align, how much it's fitting in. And that's where, reading a job description and trying to have a pick, it helps both ways.
Right. So Jagdish, I think great conversation. Let's go to some of the user questions. Just give me 1 second while I open it up here. So folks, just a gentle reminder to all of you, if you have not asked your questions yet, please head over to Slido. The link is in the Zoom chat. And I will ask Jagdish your questions. Right? So let's see, okay, it's here. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen, but I'll be reading out the questions, right? The most popular questions is around the current pandemic and how to approach this. So I'll read the question. In this coronavirus situation, where even IITN's offers are being revoked, is it even possible for Tier 3 non-CS stream freshers to land decent SDE offers. And you can talk broadly also about what they can do in order to stand out.
I think I'd split it into three parts. The first, I think, I know there's a huge pandemic out there. Everybody's, so finicky about what's going to happen, would I land a job, what's going to happen to the job market and stuff like that. I would, like to tell you that it's just like, any other time where there are a lot of companies who have just flourished using this situation, particularly the e-learning platforms. A great example out there is, all the kind of e-learning platforms which is particularly focused around like schools, colleges. They've grown big time, and why go even there? Let's just talk about Zoom. I'm pretty sure people would have seen the valuation of the company, just from start of the pandemic to now. It's gone to like unimaginable levels. So yeah. I think always please keep a positive attitude, and in any situation there's always a good positive things to take out, and there is definitely things which will sunk up, and just that those companies have to rethink, redo stuff, and not just applicable for our industry. I recently read an article which moved me, where I think this was in Pondicherry, where a restaurant owner who had about 10 or 15 folks was being kind of working. It's not like a huge corporate setup or whatever, just a small setup, hardly trying to make some decent money out of it. He did a great job. He didn't try to fire all of them. Instead of trying to cook and serve within his restaurant, he started getting into a mobile van and trying to distribute the food packets. Mm-hmm. And instead of placing like $250 for his biryani or whatever things he was doing, that was the example that he gave. Like he placed it like $70 or $80, where it made it much more affordable for folks, and his business really flourished. And the folks who were working under him were extremely thankful, for that. So that way, there is always a great positive at every situation. And sorry for the diversion. Now, coming to the actual topic, around where even IITians are getting revoked. Trust me, there are a lot of companies, including us, who are definitely honoring, irrespective of the situation, that are out there. And similar to us, I'm pretty sure that huge companies, huge number of companies, including startups, who don't want to do any of that unless the things are completely taken south. And that said, as we speak, it's not a pitch for my company, but there are at least 100 plus offers that are open out there right now. And similar to us, all the big companies, right from Amazon to Facebook to all the companies that you name them, right from small startups, there is always opening out there. And yeah. The second part of the question coming to is about sorry, Ajay, you had
no please, yeah, go ahead. Keep going, Jagdish. Yeah.
Okay. So the second part, like we briefly touched based, non-CS stream freshers, like you said, for any of them to take you, because you kind of landed on academia of your choice, which is not into the kind of rushing. Like I'm talking about right from even chemical engineering to mechanical engineers, to civil engineers, beyond triple E and stuff, courses like that. You just have to make sure that you prove that you are kind of meeting the same guidelines that is being kept around, where some of your academia proves your learnability or the hardworking story of yours, and you would have to prove that you're great at programming skills or the data structures or the computer science related concepts that are core for a job, via various means. And like I shared, HackerRank or any of the coding platforms, or any of the kind of websites that you have yourself built ground up, or any of those kind of projects or things like that, are definitely a meaningful way to show that you've done stuff. And if you've done your hard work, I'm pretty sure you would definitely be considered wherever there is kind of openings that are out there. And at this stage, I've slightly extend this question. I wanted to also share. There are a lot of folks in big product firms, including ours, where one of my strong person is a 12-year experienced guy whose background was from civil engineering. There is another person who went, big ways. He initially started with DShaw. He went on to Microsoft in US, and then he started a huge cloud company which is doing, I'm sure it's at some $1 billion evaluation stage right now, who was from a chemical engineering background. So, all the folks do understand that, degrees are, meant to be something, but it's not everything.
Right. What about the impact of, say, bad ACADS? Maybe you didn't get the right scores in the first couple of years of your ACADS, or maybe things didn't work out during your degree. But later on, how do you sort of compensate for these things, and how do you show that you're serious, and you're really looking to make that change and you're motivated to do it?
Yeah, I think it's slightly unfortunate, I should say, even being a hiring manager, that if a person with a, kind of a bad ACADS, turns out during a college interview process, because, when particularly the big companies go, there are like, thousands of folks, and, hardly the number of roles that we would have to offer would be somewhat in, limited digits. So, one of the easiest criteria at the college, becomes your ACADS. And if people are questioning, hey, why ACADS, why not something else? ACADS definitely, show that kind of your 4 years or 3 years or whatever, the number of years you try to spend, the hard work there, one way, like I said, of evaluating a person, right? It shows your learnability, it shows your, skills, the hard work, everything that I've put in during those times. But the more higher you grow in your experience, definitely ACADS, just becomes like, just one of the other sidebar criteria, not definitely the main criteria. So for folks who are out there, who, let's say, hey, for whatever reason, things didn't work out great during my college, but, I'm fantastic. It's all about, proving yourself, and the ways of proving, like we just touched based on the previous topics, are kind of, right from open source contributions, or some websites, or like top coding platforms, or good projects where you've really gone deep into understanding the stuff. Those are the ones which would definitely get the attention of the resume screeners or the hiring managers or the interview process.
What are some strategies and tips to improve a person's profile ahead of applying to some, top MNCs or good tech companies? What can they do to sort of correct or, augment their experience and skills in order to stand out?
Yeah, I think this kind of briefly the same kind of relative thing that we talked about, but beyond the previous question, like we touched based earlier, one of the things that shows that you're passionate about that role, and that you're applying for, is to learn a little bit about a company. Definitely go through the JDs or the job description which is out there to know, and try to tailor your resume so that there is a much higher chance of in the screening process things to be kind of passing on.
Right. So there's a question from Vaibhav, and he says, there are times in an interview when I don't know the answer to the question that the interviewer is asking. How do I handle these situations in a meaningful way, so that it ends up being a positive experience overall?
Yeah, thanks Vaibhav for that question. I think it's a pretty important topic to touch base on. So in an interview process, it's again, this is particularly applied across all levels. The point is not always about a Viva kind of a stuff, or like a college ACAD evaluation where, hey, I asked this question, did you answer that, a tick mark kind of a stuff. It's more about the thought process. It's more about the other aspects that we look for, like a touch base, like your problem solving skills and things like that. Most importantly, people value when you're particularly stuck and you don't know the answer. It's about what is your next step. That's much more crucial than getting the real answer. It's about, hey, am I just stuck into that, and not trying to give up forever, versus for a certain time I try to move towards a different path or a different approach. Can I retrace back and can I try to regather the question, or rethink and go in a different approach? those adds phenomenal value during the interview process. And particularly during the interview where if the question has been similar, like Ajay also shared at the starting, people tend to prepare a lot, and if a similar question comes, they try to just write down the entire answer straight away. We do try to reassess by trying to change the question slightly to get to know whether this person really understands, or it's been just he has seen this question somewhere, and stuff like that.
Right.
And to just extend a little bit, one of the kind of funny incident I also wanted to share again. This happened not in our company, from some of my friends' experience, has been that where an interviewer tried to guide him, tell him that, hey, no, this is not the right answer. Can you try to approach it in this fashion on this one? The person straight away said, no, you're wrong, without even trying to think through. So it's definitely I'm sure interviewers also at the end of the day they are human beings, right? So we are also mature. We try to make sure to guide it. This person tried to tell again and again that okay, this is great, but what if you think about this scenario, this scenario, this scenario? It was like, no, you're wrong. This is the right thing. He was not even willing to rethink or willing to listen to the questions that are being put forward. So please help yourself by not trying to get stuck too much. And from both the parties, we also, when we train interviewers from our side, we try to tell, hey, this is not an ego game. It's all about how have a chat with the person, try to figure out the qualities that you look for, depending on the rounds that you're going through, rather than trying to get stuck from, hey, am I right? You are right? That's definitely not the platform for. This is more about what a person does, how he does. If he typically gets stuck, right? What is the next step he moves? Those are primary, focus areas.
Right. So Jagdish, we're through with all the user submitted questions, and we have about 6 more minutes, and I think we're doing great. So I have some follow-up questions to discuss, right? Do you have any tips for after the selection? They've got the offer, they've joined the company, right? What are some, and let's assume they're like freshers, just starting out, or maybe 1 year of experience in an unrelated domain. What are some meaningful ways to plan their career from that point onwards? There's a lot of literature and guidance that people get on how to crack interviews. But once they've joined a company, right, how do you plan your first year? What are some meaningful goals to achieve in the first year? And generally, how do you know if you're doing well in a company over the first 1 or 2 years?
That's a fantastic question. Like you said, there's so much focus on the pre-interview part, and so less post the things that gets in. So see, definitely every company has some kind of a bootcamping story, in terms of making sure, and particularly for freshers, we know that campus to corporate kind of a setup, because there are a lot of things that has to be unlearned from ACADS and to be learned to fit towards your career kind of a journey. Right. So definitely people would have taken care to make sure to consider those aspects and build their bootcamp sessions accordingly. That happens somewhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to there are companies that are out there which even does a 6 months kind of a story in those things. But the first years, primarily, I would like to urge people to focus more on trying to learn in depth. There are a lot of folks who try to be showcasing that they have solved the problem quickly. For example, a small task, we also try to break down. We don't try to come and tell that you just join on day one and tell that, hey, here is a huge product that I want to build. Just an example, here is an e-learning platform that as a firm we are trying to build, just go build it and come back to me. That's definitely not, what is going to be thrown at you. We would try to, also take you in a, slow, well-paced journey. And depending on how you move forward, we also try to, increase the pace at which things would grow for you. So initial formative years are definitely crucial, and particularly the first year, please don't get behind this running race of, let's say there are 5 freshers in the team. They gave this problem or small task to each of them. My answer is to just, okay, overnight, let me solve this problem quickly and go. It's definitely not that. It's more about use that opportunity to learn around the breadth, around what you're trying to solve, how best to do it, what are the other ways you could do it. They come a long way, particularly beyond your 5 years kind of a growth, where you are at, the expectations from you are going to be, much higher in terms of what you give, and the time that you get to do those researches also tend to become smaller. So initial years, folks, they are the, great period where there is so much time at your disposal. Right from, I'm pretty sure there is less of, family related commitments also, which tends to, definitely eat up time, right? So initial years focus more around, trying to build more breadth at the question that's being thrown at, rather than trying to, just solve. And to give an example, let's say, you have to, let's say an example of, hey, just a multi-threaded kind of a problem is being given to you. Don't just try to go, let's say you're building it in Java, and, just don't try to put a new thread runner, whatever. Try to see what are the other ways. There are, executors, there are thread pools and things like that. Go try to read up on those topics, which the chance you will try to, get for those learning is going to be very less. So please do focus more on learning, and as much as you learn and make it strong, it's going to help build a very strong base going forward.
I think it's great advice, and seldom touched upon in most conversations that I have. So yeah, thanks a lot, Jagdish. I think a lot of valuable information, a lot of good details that people can use, not only from an interview preparation standpoint, but we also touched upon how to optimize the first couple of months and years of careers as well. Thank you for being part of the Cryo Big Variable series. We really appreciate taking out the time. And to all the participants as well, thank you for staying through, and all the spirited questions that you've all asked so far. So Jagdish, any parting thoughts, messages you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks very much, and say hi to her.
Yeah, my daughter's been waiting for so long.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, I'm really, thankful for this opportunity, around to get to interact with folks. It's been really great, and thanks for those awesome questions out there. As a parting thought, again, I would like to touch base on the key takeaway that I started with, that hiring, it's not completely scientific. So please don't get, dejected or, feeling anything. There is a little bit of luck in place, but I'm pretty sure with a strong base of preparation, like we discussed, would, help definitely a lot in terms of tracking your chances at it. So with that, thanks for being a wonderful audience, and
yeah, thanks a lot, Jagdish.